Thank you so much, Annette. Good morning. Nice to see so many shiny faces here on this beautiful day. We live in a society of quickies. We love instant gratification, don't we? We don't want to take the long road. And this is not just our culture, this country. It's really quite universal right now. And remember when we used to write letters? Some of you may remember. I mean, these days it seems like writing an email is so old-fashioned when you can text, right? So there is that need to get from one place to the other fast. And it's reflected in all areas of our lives. Just look at advertisement. Everything promised you a state of change quickly. Fast, fast, fast relief. Take this pill and the headache's gonna be gone. Take that pill and you'll drop 20 pounds in 5 days. So it's always the promise of getting there without a lot of effort. So what's the here and what's the there? Of course, there's a lot of variations to the theme, but isn't it often that we want to feel good? Plain and simple, right? We want to avoid suffering. We want to be in our version, our interpretation of healthy, happy, and wealthy. I always like that. That sounds so nice. Healthy, wealthy, and happy, or whatever. You can mix it up. So, of course, how that's filled is very different from one person to the other. And when we sort of seek to run away from pain, we want to also, on the spiritual realm, be somewhere other than here, now. True? Nah, come on. So, sometimes we may have an inclination to seek a fast way, a shortcut. And that's what I'd like to talk about today. Spiritual shortcuts. Do they exist? Are they real? We're going to look at that whole topic from quite a few angles. Whenever I do a talk, I always love to really gather up. It's like sparkling, here and there. It's like a diamond with so many facets, because it's a funny thing, but the older I get, the less there are really clear-cut and dry facts anymore. I don't know if that has to do with aging or maybe with wisdom. So, spiritual shortcuts. Let's see what the there may look like. Now, depending on where we are in our belief system, we may call the there enlightenment, samadhi, nirvana, grace. It doesn't really matter so much what it's called, but look at what it's filled with, that sense of oneness. Because when we come into body, and you all know that we're spirit having a human experience, right? So when we come in body, heck, it's not that easy to be an earthling, right? And sometimes we go, oh, what am I doing here? Home, like E.T., home. And so we have this longing, this yearning to be away from that separation, from the pain, the suffering. Yeah, the joys are great too, but wouldn't it be nice if everything was just, hallelujah and harps and angels on a white cloud? So the shortcuts that we sometimes are seeking may take so many different shapes and forms. Again, what's very prevalent in our society are sometimes in not so healthy ways. Addiction is a huge, huge problem because we may take a substance or alcohol or whatever it is to not feel what's present, but rather feel different. Whether it's to, smooth the waves, make us feel relaxed, like, yeah, cool. And whatever the nature of the addiction is. And it's, of course, I don't have to tell you how many problems it creates in our society. But the rise of addictive behaviors and in all the many shapes and forms, it's noticeable. And it's, to some extent, again, trying to avoid the pain. So, let's look at another path. Because, the unfortunate thing with addiction is it doesn't work. Agree? It gives you temporary relief, only to make things worse and worse and worse. It's a slow way to sell your soul or to give up. And sometimes it's fast and sometimes it's slow. So let's just say for now, well, there gotta be better ways. So let's look at gurus. Yeah, the guru will do it, yes? No? Maybe? So when we are attracted to a teacher that we may call guru or not, again, it's beyond classifications. We have the sense that this person is a master. This person knows it. And if I align myself with those teachings, with that way of life, then I'll get there. And for a lot of people, it works. We're so blessed here in North County. We have such a variety of spiritual centers. And there are incredible masters who have laid out a path like Paramahansa Yogananda. If you've ever been to the Self-Realization Fellowship Gardens and just sit there on the cliffs, you don't have to be a devotee to just feel the energy, feel the peace, the healing. And many people say that's the only way. For me, this has brought liberation. And of course, there is also often a sense of community. There are rules, regulations. So there's a lot of comfort to be found, yes? I haven't ever really been able to follow just one guru. I'm very eclectic spiritually. And, by now I've just come to accept it and not see it as, oh, what's wrong with me? I think we have to be true to our soul. And for me, I feel I get inspired by so many sources and teachers, and I may follow a certain set for some time, and then I step back a bit. I had one instant where I was in a gathering with a guru, and I was overwhelmed by a very strong heart opening. And I literally walked up and fell to my knees and in front of the guru. And I never forget, he just sort of coldly looked at me instead of, oh, you're home, welcome back. No, he looked at me sort of coldly and then said to his helpers, take her away, give her some water. That was sort of like a cold bucket over my head. But later I understood he didn't want to be idolized. He didn't want to be the ersatz parent that you just want to be love me, solve all my problems. So I later understood that was really the right thing to do, to prevent this idolization, idolatry, whatever the word is. So, but there are these moments where we just feel, and the heart opens and we melt into this oneness. And in that moment, we feel bliss, we feel grace. Interestingly, that moment can also come out of darkness, doesn't it? There's the so-called dark night of the soul. I don't know about you. Anybody in here been there, done that? So they are painful, painful journeys that may have to do with a great deal of loss, of suffering, of pain. And sometimes in that dark night of the soul, we don't see any light. We don't see a way out. We feel we are lost. And it is from that bottom that sometimes that moment, that miracle happens. If you know, for example, Eckhart Tolle, another one of these very popular teachers, you may know that he had been on the spiritual pursuit and it took him nowhere, and he was so depressed that he wanted to end his life. And in that moment of complete surrender, where he was just screaming out, take me now, I can't do this anymore. That's when it happened. And he describes that time of bliss that for him lasted like weeks or months, where all he could do is sit on a park bench and smile. So, and then of course, since that's also a temporary state, then he was able to integrate this experience into living the path and teaching others, which to me, a true master teaches others to become masters or adapt or whatever. So this magical place of hitting bottom, it can even lead you to the step of death. I had a so-called near-death experience, and let me tell you, it wasn't all just angels and hallelujah. I was in a coma for 3 weeks, in intensive care in the hospital for almost 3.5 months. And while in that coma, to the outside world, I just wasn't there. Lights were out to the world. I was on an inner journey that took me to amazing places. And it was not easy. But when out of the utmost despair on this journey, there was a spark of light again. And I went, and even just that awareness of the spark of light, it bounced me back into life. I found this body again, and this is not to sound funny, because you can really not know anymore who you are in those altered states of consciousness. So I identified, found this body again, and little by little I was given back to the world. Like a baby, I had to learn everything again. To stand, to walk, to move. There was a first time for everything. A first time out of the hospital air, stale air, back into nature. I'll never forget the first time by the beach. Anyway, I'm getting a little into my story too much, but what I wanted to say is, I don't know if I got enlightened, but I surely, through that experience, got a deeper commitment to doing what I do. You know how sometimes we make deals with God? You would never do that. I know. But I did at that time because the suffering was very great. And so at one point I just said, okay, God, get me out of this, and I will devote myself to doing the work. I didn't even know at that time exactly what doing the work would look like. Do I have to save all the starving children in Africa, or I really didn't know. But with time, it became clear, and I really do feel that that was a turning point for me. And by how I feel today when I do my work, I know I'm aligned with the greater good. See, that whole spiritual moment, it can come with a bang, or it can be very gradual. It can even be sort of imperceptible. Think of it, there's a book, Chop Wood, Carry Water, right? So the phrase here is, what did you do before enlightenment? Chop wood, carry water. And what did you do after enlightenment? Chop wood, carry water. So there's infinite number of phases that spiritual awakening can take. And sometimes we just have to work consistently, persistently, with clear intention, with dedication, and with passion. You know, there's no shortcut for passion. If you want God or source or creator, all that is, with all your heart, it won't deny you. It may not be overnight. It may be at a time when you least expect it. But you will feel the progression. Let's talk about another spiritual shortcut, since that's a topic, and that's interesting. Have you ever heard the term spiritual bypass? So what that denotes is when we focus on spiritual practice or teachings while denying our humanness, our woundedness, our psychological issues. And that creates problems all by itself. When talking with Gary about my talk, he's a very wise soul, and I love to exchange ideas with him in preparation for life. So, see, now I lost it because I looked at you and just fell in love again. So, the bypass here is, he studied Buddhism, and in Buddhism, there is that whole notion of detachment, right? We're not supposed to identify too strongly with our humanness because that creates suffering. And then we stay stuck on the wheel of karma. So, have you ever met people who take that notion of detachment to a sense of where they're cold? And where they maybe deny their feelings? They deny their need to feel close, to be attached. Attachment, detachment. It's really quite an interesting debate. And it was sweet as I read about some of the great Buddhist teachers. I was made aware there was one when his best friend died, which is a famous teacher with the name of Suzuki Roshi. This man let out a piercing cry and wailed publicly. So, did he deny in this moment his humanness? No. There's got to be room for grief, for anger. Oh, that's another one. When we deny anger, we all know the person, I forgive you. It's sort of, it doesn't really want to come out, right? They do that too quickly because they think they have to. There's no shortcut to real forgiveness. It means dealing with the feelings, the hurt, the anger, the resentments, the grief, whatever there is. We're humans. We're maybe Buddha coming into human body or coming back into Buddhahood, but we got to learn how to function as humans, yes? So give yourself permission to embrace your humanness. Feel feel free to do the work. The shortcuts, sometimes they work, sometimes they just don't. And the many ways our society tells us, just do this and for sure you'll have that guaranteed. Gary gave me another image that I really like. There are some fountains in Japanese gardens to where there may be like a bowl or a container, and the water comes in, and when it gets full, it tips over, right? So there's the fullness, and then the emptiness, and then it fills up again. So maybe through regular practice of meditation, through devotion, through commitment, intention, prayer, whatever it is, we fill the bowl so that the tipping point can come. Now, we can't control it. It's not like a bank account where you say, okay, ta-da, I met my goal. But we can trust that if we just do the works, we make that possible. And there's always a surrender, isn't there? The element of surrender to grace. That can't be forced, it can't be controlled, it can't be brought about by being a good little girl. Even the goody two-shoes, what, some of them, they love to help others because they don't love themselves. True? See, for those people, it may be really helpful to practice random acts of kindness, but anonymously, so that the ego doesn't get fed by good girl, right? So there's so many ways. Mindfulness. It's not a shortcut, but it's a pretty good, I wouldn't call it a highway either. How about a freeway? Regular meditation practice leads you. It makes room. It calms the monkey mind down for just long enough so that your spirit self can come in and whisper messages, treasuring your intuition. There is really no shortcut to that. So I want to leave you with that sense of, if you feel there are shortcuts, you may have to try them out. Hey, I myself tried a few of them. And, I almost drowned in unhealthy behavior. And by the grace of God, there was that spiritual awakening that brought me back into alignment. And now I just feel, I thank God every day that I don't have to do that anymore. But that was a necessary part of my journey. So embrace your humanness. Love yourself more fully. Calm down that critical voice that always nags, not good enough. Or the shoulds, the worst is, I should have. Well, how can I should have? I can't. It's the here and the now. So I can set my intention. But guilt and shame and blame, all of that is really toxic stuff. There is no shortcut for self-love. No replacement, I should say. Yes, seminars, teachings, modern medicine tells you, just put certain earphones on and listen to these binaural sounds and you're going to be magically aligned. Yeah, maybe. Try it out, but keep your heart open to divine grace to manifest in time and on time. When you're ready, God is. And I'm going to wrap it up in one little sentence that I really love. Clean house, trust God, and help others. There's your shortcut. Thank you.